Hey guys, tonight we're heading way back to a time before tacos, before tequila, even before the Spanish ever set foot here. We're stepping into a mysterious land of ancient Mesoamerica, through the morning mist and into a cornfield, just kissed by the rising sun. There, every single corn stalk stands like a silent sentinel, bearing the weight of a 1,000-year-old secret. Tonight's story isn't about war, kings, or lost treasures. Is about a single ear of corn. A small cob of corn you might not even bother to chew on most days. So, before we dive in, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me in the comments, what city are you in right now? What time is it? Are you ready to drift off into a dream? I'll dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Step onto damp soil. The air is thick with the scent of earth and morning dew. Before you stretches a golden field lit by the first light of day, where thousands of corn stalks stand quietly, as if each one is watching you. This is the highland of Mexico. Sometime between a few centuries BCE and the early 1500s CE, home to a civilization you may have only heard about in games or animated films, the Aztecs. But what you may not know is this. To the Aztecs, corn wasn't just a source of carbs, it was life itself. Gently touch a stalk and imagine if it could speak, it might proudly say, a whole civilization? Yeah, corn held it up, honestly. It wouldn't be wrong, because without corn the Aztecs wouldn't have existed. They called it taliali, not just a word, it was practically a synonym for life. No exaggeration. The Aztec worldview, their religious rituals, agriculture, daily meals, their entire social structure was wrapped around this sacred plant, like leaves clinging to a stalk. It's funny, in Europe, religion said humans were made from dust by God, but in the Aztec world humans were needed from corn dough. Corn didn't just feed you, it was your origin. Glance down at the soil beneath your feet, you think you came from the earth. You were born from masa corn dough. Historians still debate this myth about humans being a mix of corn and earth, but the Aztecs believed it with all their hearts. They saw human bodies as sacred hybrids of corn and mother-orking tortillas, you might say. Suddenly it hits, maybe that's why eating was such a sacred act in their society. You weren't just getting energy, you were partaking in a divine exchange of nourishment. As you stand there pondering, a child runs past you, smiling as he munches on a warm tortilla. His mother nearby is preparing a meal by the stove. Beside her are sacks of corn in every color, yellow, red, blue, even black. Ask her why the colors are separated. She shrugs and says, each color has its own god. Some are for festivals, others keep our children healthy. Nods slowly. Aztec culture, corn didn't just have shapes and colors, had personality, emotion, spirit. A field beneath your feet isn't just farmland. It's a layered, living structure of belief. To the tortilla in your hand, and a different context, it might be a holy offering, a token to speak with the gods. So, when you took that first step into the field, weren't just walking through land, you were stepping into an entire world. World where corn is written into the soul. You squat at the edge of the field, the morning sun filtering through the gaps in the corn leaves, casting gentle light across your face. Old farmer waves at you from a nearby stone. He looks a bit like a wizard, from a cartoon sparse beard, feathers on his head, and eyes that seem to hold the entire universe. Know where corn came from, don't you? He asks with a smile. You shake your head. He begins to speak, slowly, like he's about to sing a very old song. The Aztec origin story of the universe. Corn wasn't just a crop that happened to grow. It was a sacred gift, rescued from deep beneath the earth. Back when the world had no food, the gods held a kind of cosmic council. Need to feed the humans, they said. The wise, they'll never stop whining about being hungry. Okay, maybe that's not the exact quote, but you get the idea. First, the gods tried other foods. Tried feeding people cactus juice. Thus thought snake skins could be turned into salad. But humans just couldn't survive on any of it. Someone remembered the corn hidden deep underground. But it wasn't exactly self-serve, get it? Someone had to dig down into a place called Tonacatepetl, the Mountain of Sustenance, also known as the Mountain of Earthquakes. So one god stepped up Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent. He said, "All right, I'll go get the corn." And Thengit turned himself into a giant ant, an ant. He crawled into the depths of the earth, through magma, monsters, and who knows what kind of underworld obstacles until he finally emerged with a single corn kernel held in his jaws. As you listen to the story, you tilt your head and think, a god turning into an ant to dig up food. That not what I expected, but that's the point. In Aztec mythology, corn wasn't a gift the gods gave to humans. It was something they fought to retreat Wassen. He handed to use it was rescued for her. From the very beginning, corn carried this subtle message. Who does just eat it, you owe it. And since it came from underground, corn was also linked to death, the afterlife, and the sacred realm below. So it might be just a vegetable. For the Aztecs, it was a spiritual traveler crossing through life and death, heaven and earth. It was like swallowing a piece of divine adventure. Sit till thinking about the myth, the old farmer chuckles and says, "Oh, use free time we eat corn, he have to thank and mode Quetzalcoatl without him. We, be chewing on cactus right now," you laugh. But inside, something quiet stirs a flicker of reverence. Modern scholars still debate whether this story carries symbolic meaning. Maybe the ant represents the birth of agriculture, or the buried corn symbolizes ancestral blessings. But the Aztec never saw it as metaphor. Meant just like we mean it when we guard our Wi-Fi password with our lives. Suddenly, you find yourself taking corn just a little more seriously. The old man hands you a tea art with an ancient god. Face eat it. Isiat, Quetzalcoatl. You think about saying that's a little weird. But insta you take a quiet bite it. Zwar little smoky, maybe even sacred. Maybe you're just really hungry. As you chew the face of a god and gaze out at the endless sea of corn, a strange thought crosses your mind. Odds taste pretty good. You wander through the village, still tasting the memory of that divine face. Few children are playing near, basing each other through the dust. One little girl trips and falls, clutching half a tortilla now sprinkled with dirt. And Thench does something unexpected. He gently blows off the dust, cradles it to her chest, whispers something softly, and then takes another bayou pause. Surprised, wait, was she apologizing? Welcome to one of the core beliefs of the Aztec world, corn. You live because of corn. Because Jawaiwara made of corn, and no. That's not an exaggeration in the Aztec creation myth humans, wherein he just raised on Kore was sculpted out of it. According to this version of the story, gods tried making humans 5 different time from mud too fragile, from wood no harem metal too heavy. Nothing worked. Till final one slammed the tablet and said, "Let strike Kora." They ground it into massa, added water, mixed in the essence of Mother Earth, and from that dough, humans were kneaded into being. Stand by the roads imagining a giant divine hand shaping you like a ball of tortilla dough. It ain't cute, and kind of makes you wonder if you'd taste good. This idea wasn't unique to the Aztecs. The Maya had a similar myth. Humans were made of the flesh of corn. Across Mesoamerican culture on Wassen, just a crop was the raw material of existence. In other words, humans weren't users of corn. Were extensions of it. Now, maybe you understand why the Aztecs treated corn with such reverence. To insult corn was to insult your ancestors, your body, your sawor entire being, family-size combo included. They even believed that if you didn't respect corn, your maize soul could become imbalanced. But when that happened, something inside you would go wrong. Sounds superstitious. But when you look back at that little girl whispering sorry to her fallen tortoise, you start to think, yeah, this kind of makes sense. How you might be wondering if they believed they were made of corn. Would eating corn feel like eating themselves? Well, not quite. They saw it more as a psyche in their view. Corn was destruction. It was fusion. Your maize soul needed constant nourishment. Just like your phone needs recharge, and every tortilla you ate was a little soul battery top-up. Of course, Modern historians interpret this human equals corn concept in different ways. Call it mythology. Others believe it was a sincere and grounded worldview that shaped daily life. You listen to all this, and slowly, start to like the lodge in a world where everything ties back to corn. Ding wasn't just about survived, was a miniature homecoming ritual. You step into a small kitchen built from stone. Smoke curls from the chimney. Pot of thick corn porridge apple bubbles over the fire, infused with a touch of chili and cacao. Cook hands you a bowl, smiling. Rink up. It'll nourish your soul. Look down at the warm, steaming bowl of spiritual soup. Take a sip. Burns your tongue a little. Somehow, your heart feels at peace, or starting to settle into this world now. Smells of roasted corn, the gentle hum of wind through stalks, the way the villagers smile when they talk about their crops. It's all strangely calming. But today, something's a little different, or invited to a ceremony. Nothing too flashy, just a small gathering in front of a stone altar, a few flower garlands, and a giant stack of tamales steaming in banana leaves. You think, nice, maybe they're just blessing the food. Then the priest walks in. And he's carrying a human-shaped figurine made entirely out of corn dough. Welcome to one of the most beautiful and unsettling paradoxes of the Aztec world. You eat the gods, and the gods eat you back. The little dough figure is called Ixitla, and no, it's not for decoration. It represents a god specifically, one of the corn deities like Sentiotl. Priest blesses it, chants some incantations, and then you guessed Itvion takes a bite. First, you're like, wait, so we're eating a god, but the local elder next to you just nods and whispers, yes, and someday, the god will eat us too. Here's the idea. In Aztec belief, life is a constant cycle of feeding and being fed. Not metaphorically, literally. The gods gave you your body made of corn and you repay them by offering your own body back one day. Either in ritual, death, or devotion. That's why sacrifices, yes, even the intense kind, were such a big deal in their world. But before your mind runs too far down the human sacrifice rabbit hole, let's rewind to something more poetic. Eating is a sacred exchange. When you eat a tamale or drink atoll, you're not just refueling, you participating in a ritual of cosmic reciprocity. You're giving thanks by taking in a piece of divinity, and, in doing so, you're keeping the universe balanced. Some scholars argue this is a metaphor. Others insist the Aztecs meant it very, very literally. The line between God and grain was blurry and, honestly, kind of delicious. You glance around at the people eating bits of the dough god and no one's weirded out. In fact, it feels joyful, peaceful. There's laughter, there's music, and the smell of roasted corn fills the air like incense. Take a bite too. The texture's soft, a little earthy, with hints of honey and smoke. For something that represents cosmic power, it's surprisingly cozy, and as you chew, you remember something the priest said earlier. To be fed is to be loved. To feed in return is to become divine. It sticks with you, not just a guest, hear you. Part of the cycle, now the dough god becomes part of you. And someday, you'll give something back. For the Aztecs, corn wasn't just sacred. Because it grew from the earth, it was sacred. Because it reminded them who they were, and where they belonged in the great loop of existence. And honestly, that loop is starting to feel pretty comforting as early morning again. The air smells of wood smoke and damp soil. You stretch, blink, and spot a crowd forming near the temple plaza. People are laughing, crying, dancing, and in the middle of it all, there's a huge puppet made of corn husks and feathers, wobbling on someone's shoulders like a parade float after 2 drinks. You rub your eyes. Is that supposed to be a god? Yes, it is. Welcome to the annual death and rebirth of the corn god. Celebration that, part Broadway musical, part funeral, and part neighborhood barbecue, the Aztecs were subtle about their seasons. Every year, when the corn reached a certain height, a ceremonial drama unfolded. The corn god must die, so corn may live again. It wasn't a sad thing. It was a necessity like exfoliating, but for agriculture. You watch as the puppet representing the young corn deity, usually Sentiotl or Zalonon, depending on the region, is captured by villagers dressed as underworld spirits. There's dramatic wailing, slow motion collapsing, maybe even a fake thunderclap if someone's feeling theatrical. Then, after a symbolic burial, sometimes just digging a shallow hole and covering the puppet with stalks, a smaller version of the corn god is brought out. Reborn, shiny, decorated with flowers, ready for another cycle of life. Ooh, blink, wait. Are we pretending the corn is dying and coming back just to celebrate planting season?
Exactly.
And it's beautiful. Its yearly ritual is more than just agriculture gospel. It's an embodiment of the Aztec worldview. Everything dies so it can be reborn. Nothing lives forever, but everything continues. On Izai, just a cropped. As a character in a story that repeats itself across time. And you, lucky traveler, get to play a role in that story even if your only job is to eat the tamales at the after-party. Some anthropologists suggest that these ceremonies helped entire communities emotionally process the unpredictability of farming. Floods, droughts, failed harvests. Instead of treating loss as disaster, they made it part of the plot. Like saying, yeah, the corn died this year, but that's just Act 1, the music swells. Drums pound. People start throwing corn kernels like confetti, and kids shriek as they scramble to catch them. One lands in your lap. It's warm from the sun. The elder from before leans over and says with a grin, keep it. That one might have a strong soul. Ooh, what you keep it anyway. And even as modern historians debate how much of this ritual was symbolic and how much was literal, one thing is certain. The Aztecs didn't just grow corn, they lived inside its story. The sun begins to set, casting gold across the fields. The new puppet god is paraded through the village like royalty. And someone hands you a cup of sweet corn drink. It tastes like forgiveness and fresh beginnings. Somewhere, deep inside you, the kernel in your lap feels heavier than it should. You're walking alone now, down a narrow dirt path between two cornfields. The wind picks up, rustling the tall stalks on either side of you. It's not just a breeze, it's a sound, a specific papery flutter, like whispers, ooh, stop, oh, one's around. But for a second, just a second, it feels like the corn is talking to you, oh, you're not losing it. Because in the world of the Aztecs, corn doesn't just feed your body, it speaks to your soul. And sometimes, if you listen closely enough, it might actually answer back. This wasn't just poetic metaphor to them, it was real. The teleali, or maize, was believed to possess a spiritual presence, not symbolic. Not it represents something, no, it has a soul, an essence. Consciousness. Aztec farmers did just plant seeds. They entered into a relationship before planting. A spoke to the apologized for disturbing her, promised to care for what grew. Before harvesting, they asked forgiveness from the corn itself for cutting it down. Imagine standing in your backyard garden, whispering to your basil plant, hey, sorry about the scissors, buddy, but pesto night is important. That's the level of reverence we're talking about. Here's a fun little detail for you. During harvest, some Aztec farmers made sure not to laugh in the fields. Laughing too loudly was believed to offend the corn spirits, who might shrink back and refuse to grow next season. Oh yes, corn was powerful, but also a little bit sensitive. If you're wondering whether this was just rural superstition, well, historians are still debating it. Some argue this deep relationship with corn was a sophisticated ecological practice, an early form of environmental ethics. Others believe it was fully spiritual, part of an animist worldview where every plant, rock, and breeze had its own personality. Ooh, you're standing in the field, trying not to breathe too loudly, just in case a cob is listening. Ooh, reach out and touch a leaf. Dry and soft at the same time, like parchment. And you swear seriously, you swear the rustling around you gets a little louder, like an answer. Of the Aztecs, this wasn't strange. It was daily life. All spirit was connected to the land. Land was connected to the gods. The gods lived through corn. Oh, really? It made perfect sense to them that the dead might return as wind, and the wind might speak through the maize. One priest once claimed that when a child was born, the breeze passing through a cornfield carried that child's destiny. And when someone died, their soul might linger in the rustling rose not gone, just waiting. Others believe it was fully spiritual, part of an animist worldview where every plant, rock, and breeze had its own personality. Ooh, you're standing in the field, trying not to breathe too loudly, just in case a cob is listening. Ooh, reach out and touch a leaf. Dry and soft at the same time, like parchment. And you swear seriously, you swear the rustling around you gets a little louder, like an answer. Of the Aztecs, this wasn't strange. It was daily life. All spirit was connected to the land. Land was connected to the gods. The gods lived through corn. Oh, really? It made perfect sense to them that the dead might return as wind, and the wind might speak through the maize. One priest once claimed that when a child was born, the breeze passing through a cornfield carried that child's destiny. And when someone died, their soul might linger in the rustling rose not gone, just waiting. It's a bit spooky, sure, but also kind of peaceful. Ooh, close your eyes and listen. For a moment, it feels like the field is breathing with you. I've been here for days now, maybe weeks. Time feels soft in this place, like wet masa dough in your hands. Every morning smells like firewood and cornmeal, and every evening ends with a steaming tamale in your lap and stars above your head. But today, something odd happens. All bite into your lunch are fresh. Golden tortillon, the woman sitting next to you, suddenly slaps your hand. Not yet, she scolds. Then she bows her head, closes her eyes, and whispers something in Nahuatl. All realize. You just tried to eat a god without saying thank yous. In the Aztec worldview, your lunch was a living being long before it hit the Como. If you're going to eat something sacred, you better show a little respect first. Tortilla isn't just cooked dough, it's tonaquiotl. That's a beautiful little Nahuatl word that means something like the sustenance of the body and the soul. But the literal translation, at which gives you your flesh, you stare at the tortilla a little differently now. It stares back, kind of. To the Aztecs, food isn't just consumed, it's welcomed. Each meal is a reunion between your body and the universe. A reminder that you're made of the same stuff as the thing you're about to chew. So, eating isn't just a rite. It's a relationship. That's why many families offered the first bite of every meal to the godsa, to the earth, or to the corn spirit that helped bring the food to life. Sometimes they'd break off a piece and set it gently on the ground. No ceremony. No big announcement. Just a quiet moment. We'll see a boy do it with a tamale. He tears off a corner, places it near a doorway, and gives it a little nod like he's saying, "Thanks, boss," kind of adorable. Kind of profound. You might be thinking, isn't this a bit much? I mean, it's just food. But not here. This world, eating is a sacred act. To eat is to remember that you're borrowing life. To eat without gratitude is like stealing it. Historians still argue about whether this whole spirit of the corn belief was literal or symbolic. Some think it's just metaphor, an ancient way to say respect your food. Others insist that, for the Aztecs, this was dead serious. The tortilla had a soul. You just took a bite out of it, glance at the rest of your lunch. Suddenly, it feels heavier in your hand, not in a guilty way. Just aware. Bow your head. Quietly, without really knowing the words, you whisper a little thanks. The woman next to you smiles. Then she hands you a second tortilla. Because Haith gods always appreciate good manners. You're hanging around the temple district now, following the smell of copal smoke and roasted corn. City buzzes like a hive priests in jaguar pelts, merchants hawking chili paste, kids racing around with sticky hands and no shoes. But amid all this chaos, something catches your eye. A priest. He's kneeling in front of a single corn stalk, and he's not just looking at eyes bowing to it. 8. Is the corn outranking him? In many societies, the priests serve the gods. But here in the Aztec world, it's almost like the priests serve the corn too. Sounds wild at first. I mean, you'd think a high-ranking priest decked out in obsidian jewelry and bird feathers would command attention. And he docilely walks into a field. Out here, the real authority stands about 6 feet tall, has green leaves, and occasionally grows in 4 different colors. Aye, because in Aztec belief, the corn isn't just sacred, it's sovereign. Let's break it down. Aztec cosmology, corn is older than kings, older than laws, older than even some gods. It's the food of creation, the original material of humanity, and anything that contains that much power automatically outranks. Well, everyone. That's why priests held elaborate ceremonies for corn planting and harvest, and why every major temple kept sacred ears of corn stored like relics, not scrolls, not golden masks, like keeping the national constitution in a tortilla warmer. You even hear stories of certain ears of corn that were believed to house divine essence. They were wrapped in fine cloth, kept in darkness, and brought out only during special rituals. People bowed to them like they were avatars of a god. Sometimes they were. Of course, not all scholars agree on how literal this was. Some think it was purely symbolic a way of honoring the agricultural cycle. Others believe that corn had cult-like status, with rituals surrounding certain cobs similar to how relics are treated in medieval Europe. Ooh, you're watching this priest touch his forehead to the dirt in front of a single, gently swaying stalk. You don't need a historian to tell Yao means it. He gets up slowly, nods to the corn like it just gave him royal permission to exist, and walks away without a word. Ooh, try it too. Ooh, kneel. Ooh, breathe. The corn doesn't speak, of course, but standing there tall and golden in the afternoon sun, it somehow feels aware, like it knows it's being seen. And this moment, you understand why power here doesn't come from thrones or swords, but from soil. From roots, from something that can grow, die, and grow again. That's not just power, that's permanence, that's market day. You stroll past stalls stacked with pottery, beans, and bundles of chili peppers tied with twine. There's music, shouting, some guy yelling way too enthusiastically about avocado prices. But what really grabs your attention is a corner table displaying something like a painter's palette of corn. Just yellow, air's deep red, almost purple, pale blue like a cloudy sky, white as bone. Even a weird dark grey that looks like it belongs in a thunderstorm, not a taco. Ooh, step closer. And that's when someone whispers behind you, each one has a soul of its own. Ooh, turn. It's an old woman with long braids selling the corn. She sees your raised eyebrow and grins. You don't just eat at the colour, you eat the story. Here's something most people don't realize. Corn comes in colour sand. Every colour had meaning in the Aztec world. Ooh, us. Different colored corn might mean fun at the farmer's market. For the Aztecs, it meant connection to specific gods, seasons, and even cosmic directions. Ed corn, that was east. Morning, burr. Fire, Lu corn, that's west. Night, ancestors' reign. White corn represented the north cold, death, bones. And yellow, that was the south warmth, growth, sunlight. Black korat one? Still a mystery. Scholars say it represented chaos. Others believe it held the energy of the underworld, but in a good way. Like, don't mess with me kind of energy. Ooh, point at a handful of red kernels. Ooh, eats the, you ask? The old woman shrugs. Warriors, mostly, or pregnant women. Depends on what you're praying for. Is he just about taste or aesthetics? Is his spiritual nutrition? You don't. You just eat what your body crave, you eat what your soul needs. Yes, of course, modern scientists will say these colors come from natural pigments like anthocyanins and flavonoids. They'll give you chemical breakdowns, talk about soil quality and altitude. It is great for the Aztecs. Wasn't about science, it was about symbolism. The color of the corn you ate was like picking a sacred frequency to tune your life to. You buy a small pouch of blue corn and hold it in your hand. It's cool, dense, and somehow peaceful. Like river stones. Now that you're paying attention, you realize corn isn't just food. It's a language. The Aztecs didn't write novels. They planted fields. Red in spring, for passion. White in winter, for closure. Blue before rain, for memory. Yellow at festivals, for life. As you walk away, you feel like you're holding a secret. Something ancient. Something almost forgotten. Language made of kernels waiting to be cooked into meaning. You've been fed, blessed, and maybe spiritually tuned by no, but today, things get a little more bureaucratic. You're in the middle of a bustling city square, watching scribes jot things down on paper made of tree bark. Runners come and go, carrying tiny cloth bags full of weight. Is that corn-s?
Yes, it is.
Because here in the Aztec world, corn isn't just food, it's currency.
Oh, kidding.
In many parts of the empire, corn was used in place of money, especially by the everyday folks who couldn't exactly toss gold around like pocket change. A few ears of corn could get you a couple of tamales, a piece of fruit, or even a small favor from someone down the road. Need your sandals fixed? Pay in corn. Want your neighbor's help carrying firewood? Corn. Get Bitcoin. This is maizecoin. A logic was simple. If it sustains life, it has value. Old was shiny, sure, but you couldn't eat it. Corn, on the other hand, you could store it, plant it, eat it, offer it to gods, and still use it to settle a petty bet about who could carry a turkey the farthest. Lean over and watch a woman trading blue corn for dried fish. Is there, like, inflation, you ask? He chuckles. Only if the gods are angry. Translation. Crop yields affected supply and demand. Sure, but divine moods also played a part in the Aztec economy. The weather went where people didn't. T just blame the climate, he blamed the gods. When corn grew scarce, its spiritual value went up too. Orn was a e just in the market, it was the market. In it did he stop with trade. Orn was also a form of tribute. Many regions under Aztec control had to send literal tons of maize back to the capital every year. This helped feed the priesthood, soldiers, nobles, and any really intense corn-based ceremonies that required, say, building a temple out of tamales. Okay, maybe not literally, but you get the idea. Historians are still arguing about just how dominant corn was in the economy. Some think cacao beans were used more frequently as currency. Others believe corn's real power came from its symbolic and practical duality, something you could eat, trade, and pray with. That's a level of multitasking your debit card could only dream of. Wander through the market, ears of corn hanging from booths like garlands. Everyone's buying, selling, cooking, carrying. It's not chaotic, it's choreography. And all of every single step is balanced on the husk of a single plant. Corn isn't just sacred. Systemic. You clutch a fresh cob you just traded for a wooden bead and realize you're holding a little piece of civilization in your hand. Yeah, it's probably going to be dinner, too. It's a quiet night now. The stars are out. Somewhere in the distance you hear drums soft and slow like a heartbeat from the earth itself. You're sitting beside a fire, watching the flames dance, when someone taps you on the shoulder. Teenage boy. Maybe 14. He looks nervous. I'm going to be a corn priest, he says. Ooh, blink. Like, professionally? He nods. And you realize that this world doesn't just worship corn. It trains specialists to understand it. Aztec society were entire classes of priests, healers and scholars who specialized in agricultural rituals, and some of them, they were corn experts, not farmers, not cook spiritual interpreters of maize. They were the ones who led planting rituals, read omens in crop growth, and made offerings to the corn gods. You couldn't just wing it. With this stuff there were protocols. Certain days of the Aztec calendar were considered favorable for planting different kinds of maize. Others were cursed. Land corn on the wrong do wearin'? Just risking a bad harvest. You were offending the gods. Guess who knew all those lucky and unlucky datat? Surya corn priests. The boy beside you tells you he's been studying the sacred calendar, memorizing glyphs, and learning chants for months. His initiation is coming soon. What happens if you mess? Ooh, ask. Half joking, he doesn't laugh. I pray the wrong we says, a whole village might starve, no pressure. Aye. Sounds extreme, but remember, in a world where food is life, the person who knows how to talk to the food is incredibly powerful. Some anthropologists believe that corn priests were a kind of agricultural scientist, social leader, and spiritual guide rolled into one. Others argue they were mainly ceremonial, more about performance than actual influence. Are you? Or watching this kid rehearse a blessing under his breath by the firelight, and you can feel eyes not just reciting words. He's speaking to something alive. He holds out a pouch and shows you 3 kernels, red, blue, and white. E for different dreams, he explains. Red helps you remember, blue helps you sleep, white brings peace. Which one do you take? You ask. He smile ends on what the corn wants to tell me. Sit together for a wine-comfortable silence. Us your future corn priest, and a fire that crackles like husks in the wind. And for the first time you realize, the soul of maize isn't just in the field, it is in the people who listen to it. Or back on the road again, following a dusty path lined with wild maize. Some of it's barely knee-high. Some towers over your head like ancient guardians. Every so often, a gust of wind sweeps through, and the stalks lean toward you like they're watching. As you walk, you start to wonder, how did maize get so magical? Your corn is great, but how did one humble plant get turned into gods, currency, calendars, even spiritual therapists? That's when it hits you. It's not just the corn. The transformations tea edible straight off the cob, not in the way wheat or fruit is. You just pluck it and mun. You have to work with it. Grind, mix it, cook it right, it won't even give you all its nutrients. The Aztecs knew this. Long before modern nutritionists showed up with lab coats and clipboards, they invented a technique called nixtamalization. I know it sounds like a spell from Harry Potter, but it's real. They soaked corn in water mixed with lime, the mineral, not the fruit, then cooked it down. This unlocked essential nutrients like niacin and made the corn easier to grind and more flavorful. To result, osa, sacred dough that made tortillas, tamales, tlacoyos, and, basically, civilization. Might sound like a simple kitchen hack, but think about it. They discovered a method that made their sacred food more nourishing, more delicious, and more durable without microscopes, apps, or spreadsheets. And they didn't separate that science from their spirituality. For them, nixtamalization wasn't just chemistry. It was transmutation, a divine process that mirrored their belief in death and rebirth. Break down the raw grain, soak it in sacred ingredients, and it becomes something greater. Pound for millet, corn alchem. Some historians debate where the process originated or whether it was discovered accidentally. But Aztec records show clear respect for it. There were even goddesses associated with Masa, who protected the kitchens and guided the grinding stones. And yes, people prayed before preparing mosicos. Again, it wasn't just food. It was the foundation of the human body. The soft-form dough you rolled in your palm wasn't just lunch, it was your flesh. Or lineage, your future child's birthday feast. You arrive at a small home, and a woman hands you a fresh tortilla, still warm, puffed up with steam. Take a bite. Soft and smoky, with just a hint of something ancient. You can't describe it. You don't need to. Because the moment it hits your tongue, thing clicks. Not just eating mao or eating time. Memory, history made chewable. And somehow that feels sacred. Festival season, in Aztec terms, means flowers everywhere, feathers on everything, and music so loud it makes your ribs thrum. People are dancing in circles, burning incense, and chanting to gods with names that twist your tongue like tamale dough. In the middle of it, or gigantic, umber-colored corn effigy, 10 feet tall, made of real maize, covered in beads, feathers, cacao shells, and weight. Is that a necklace of tiny tortillas? Yes, it is. You're witnessing one of the great seasonal festivals in honor of corn, specifically the god Sentiotl, and sometimes his female counterpart, Chicamacotl. This is their party. See, while corn played a role in daily life, it absolutely owned the festival calendar. The Aztecs devoted entire months to honoring May. The Terralion of the 18 months in the Aztec solar calendar was called Huitazostli, or Great Vigil, dedicated entirely to corn-related rituals. During these festivals, people dressed up as maize gods, offered their best harvests, and sometimes even constructed enormous edible sculptures. One famous celebration involved creating life-sized corn god statues out of amaranth dough and honey, which were later ceremonially eaten by the community. So, ancient sugarcorn gods were a thing. But these events weren't just about spectacle. They were about reminding people that survival was a collective effort. You didn't just grow corn, you grew it with the community, for the community. And the gods, were your field partners, your meal buddies, your heavenly co-farmers. In one ritual, young women would walk through the village carrying stalks of maize on their backs, symbolizing both fertility and the burden of sustaining life. Meanwhile, elders chanted prayers to Tonakatikatlife, Lord of our sustenance. You stand there, corn husk crown gently sliding off your head, and you realize this isn't just a harvest celebration. It's a spiritual group hug. Historians have their debates, of course. Some believe the festivals were more political than spiritual tools to reinforce imperial power through shared myth and spectacle. Others insist that at their core, these rituals were about gratitude and balance, to keeping cosmic harmony through corn color and community. You're holding a mini corn effigy someone handed you, trying to figure out if it's meant to be worshipped or dipped in chili sauce. Be both. Sky turns amber as the sun begins to set. Someone lights a torch, then another, and soon the whole plaza glows like a living painting. Music swells. Drums roll, and in the middle of it all, people begin to sing not words exactly, but sounds. Sounds that carry up into the sky like threads tying earth to something bigger. You think there really are gods out there. This is probably their favorite part. Wake up before sunrise or eyes misty. Quiet. A kind of quiet that makes your footsteps sound louder than they should. You follow a narrow path toward the fields this time. No one's singing, dancing, or offering you tortillas. Is different? Today is the day they plant the first seed. Aztecs didn't treat planting season like a casual, backyard gardening moment. This was a sacred, Aztecs ritual al qual parts hope, science and prayer. Arrive at the field just as a line of elders gathers at the barefoot, faces painted, each holding a small pouch of corn kernels wrapped in cotton cloth like precious stones. Priest steps forward, his hands tremble slightly. Not from fear, but reverence, he kneels. Then he speaks to the earth. It's not a monologue, it's a conversation. He thanks the ground for last year's harvest, apologizes for disturbing her rest, promises to care for what will grow. And then he whispers to the sea. Yes, the seed, as a metaphor being, because in this worldview, every corn kernel is a living spirit waiting to be reborn, planting it with care. That's like tossing a baby into a pool and yelling good luck. He presses the seed into the soil, overs it, breathes. Then the others follow, unbywallanting their own kernels in complete silence. Even the children watching are still. You join in. All fingers dig into the often cool. And for a second, you feel it that strange heart beat you. Thud been sensing ever since you arrived, like the ground is listening. You whisper, grow well. Somehow that feels like a spell. Sit back on your heels and glance around. No one's rushing, there's no cheering, just an ancient calm. Because this moment isn't about celebration, it's about trust. Bury a seed, not knowing what will come. You hope, you pray, you wait. You believe at belief. It's not passive, it's active. It's a sacred agreement between people, land, and gods. Historians say these rituals were early agricultural science dressed in spiritual robes. Others insist the spiritual layer was the science the only way people could comprehend the immense responsibility of feeding a civilization. Stand and dust off your knees. Behind you, the field is full of invisible promises, sleeping just beneath the surface. And 1,000 meals, 1,000 stories, are waiting to grow up. Sky is dark now. At nighttime, dark eclipse dark. Or standing with a crowd in the middle of a dusty courtyard, heads tilted up, staring at the sun as it vanishes behind the moon like a divine curtain call. No one talks, no one moves, because this is not just a natural phenomenon. This is cosmic crisis, and in the Aztec world, that means one thing. The corn survived the ill, we survived this? To the Aztecs, the universe was a fragile balancing act, had collapsed before. Several times, actually. Mythology speaks of 5 sunsviv eras of the worlds destroyed in cataclysmic fashion. reliving in the fifth one now, and guess what? It's powered by sacrifice. By offerings? By corn? Without enough of those? The sun might just decide to peace out permanently. Or when something weird happens in the sky like an eclipse? That. Es not astronomy, that. Es a warning. People murmur prayers. A woman clutches a bundle of maize, wrapped tight in woven cloth. An elder tosses a few kernels into the fire, muttering a chant you don't understand, but your spine feels it. Because in that moment, everyone shares the same quiet dread. What if the corn gods are angry? Suddenly, all the rituals, all the offerings, all the whispered prayers before mealsty make perfect sense. A wary superstitions, they were survival strategies, emotional insurance in a world that felt unpredictable and alive. Ooh, realize the Aztecs didn't worship corn just because it fed them. They worshipped it because it reminded them of their place in the cosmos somewhere between gratitude and uncertainty, devotion and hunger. The eclipse starts to fade. The sun re-emerges slowly, like a bashful god checking to see if you're still paying attention. On the people cheer. Not wildly, but with relief, with reverence. The kind of tired joy. Like someone who's just been told the world will, in fact, keep spinning. A woman next to you hands you a warm tamale from her pouch. Ooh, take it silently, nodding, because tonight you're not just eating a snack, or participating in the quiet, ancient hope that as long as there's corn, air will be light. A fire crackles low now. Most of the village is asleep. You sit beneath the stars, the last of your tamale warm in your hands, listening to the gentle rustle of corn leaves swaying in the night breeze. It's soft. Almost like breathing. You think back on everything you've seen, priests bowing to storks, children whispering thanks to tortillas, an entire world built on golden kernels and sacred dough. It's strange, isn't it? That something so small could carry so much meaning. And yet, somehow, it makes sense. Because maybe, just maybe, life isn't built from grand temples or shining thrones. Maybe it's made from simple things, soft hands in the soil, whispered prayers over breakfast, the sound of corn growing when no one's looking. Ooh, close your eye in the quiet. Ooh, feel it again, a heartbeat of the earth, steady and slow. Like a lullaby written in husks and wind. Oh, rest easy, a corn is watching. A gods of fun, the sun will rise.